What's going on, everybody? Long time no see. This is sort of a video, sort of a combination of a couple of videos that I had wanted to make over the last year and a half, but due to sort of overall lack of enthusiasm in creation, I kind of opted out of that. So, in a way, this is sort of a couple videos kind of mashed into one. But the topics will be sort of revisited in their own right later on down the road, hopefully. But really, what we're going to do right now is take a look at the Blumhouse trilogy of the Halloween series, the David Gordon Green trilogy, the Halloween 40 trilogy, whatever you guys want to call it. The newest batch of films, the 18 Kills and Ends. We're going to take a look at those, and I'm going to sort of give my quick thoughts on each of those films and how it works as a trilogy and how it compares to the other films. And then we're going to take a look at what I think would be a good direction for the franchise to go in going forward. And then you guys will see my updated Halloween ranking. It might be a little bit different than the one you guys saw back in 2020. Anyway, let's get into it. So starting off, we're going to be looking at the David Gordon Green Blumhouse trilogy of Halloween films. Again, starting with Halloween 2018. I remember when this film was announced to be coming out, it was sort of a big deal, and I think that's quite an understatement. It might be one of the biggest understatements I have ever made. When that film was announced, I was over the moon thrilled. I mean, we're seeing Michael come back, and not just any Michael, but more or less the original Myers. In that sense that we have the character coming off of the 1978 film. And we have the return of Laurie Strode, who is no longer linked to Myers by the familial ties that had dictated the franchise for, at that point, I think it was 37 years. We're now looking at well over 40 years that was sort of the course of the franchise. But that sort of was disconnected, which was really exciting. So it was taking us, in a lot of ways, really back to the source. Of course, it was retconning all the sequels, for better or worse, out of the equation. And in a lot of ways, you had a lot of the key players from the originals coming back. That being mostly Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter to a certain extent, mostly behind the scenes. He did not direct it, obviously, but he did come back to compose the score, which was a really needed approach, because having him on board really, I think, elevated my excitement level just a bit more. And hearing that Nick Castle was involved, I mean, almost everything at play with the announcement of the 2018 film had me psyched. And of course, when that film came out, I went and saw it opening weekend, and I loved what they did with it. That's not to say that I found it to be a perfect film, but it was certainly better than most of the Halloween films we had had up to that point. And granted, there are some that came out before that I do enjoy more, but this one I think did better than most sequels in the sense that it gave us a story that feels like it actually is properly connected to the 1978 film. And of course, there are some things in it that did not really work so well. There were certain aspects regarding the Dr. Sartain character. You guys know exactly what I'm pointing out with that one. We're not going to get into that because that will dampen the mood of this video just a little prematurely. But overall, I thought it was pretty cool. Again, taking out the brother-sister line, and it did seem a little over-contrived getting Michael and Laurie back together for another showdown, but overall it was effective. The music was probably the best it had been in quite a few years. The acting in the film was mostly pretty good. Some of the dialogue was pretty take it or leave it in the 2018 film for the most part. But on the whole, I'd say that Halloween 2018 was a success, and you could say quite essential viewing of the franchise. It's really one that you would recommend to people who are not too familiar with the Halloween films, and that is really is a good thing to say about a Halloween film. It's like, yeah, I could recommend this to an average fan. So, yeah, Halloween 2018, it was splendid for what it was. Uh, I'll give more thoughts on that later on down the road. Halloween Kills was an interesting one because, in a lot of ways, this was being that these Blumhouse films were, in a way, their own series that can properly function without the 1978 film. This felt like, okay, Star Wars had just come out. Now we're waiting for Empire to come out. That's kind of the feeling I had going into this one. And especially when I saw the trailer for it, it felt like it was going to be a completely different Halloween film from what we were used to, in the sense that Myers is coming back. And he's coming back with a super freaking vengeance. Like, he is not going to be holding back any bit at all. And to see how he was portrayed in that film, it really kind of brought the film up to a level that I was not expecting. I know a lot of people were pretty down on that film. They did not really care for Halloween Kills. I mean, the whole evil dies tonight and overdoing the mob mentality sort of theme of the film, a lot of people thought that was a little too contrived and overdone. My thoughts on the heavy-handed delivery of the sort of mob mentality, that's one of those things I'm kind of in the middle on. It's like, I don't know, you kind of got to really put yourself in that position. Like, not that anyone wants to be in that sort of position, but you gotta find yourself really in that kind of scenario to completely understand whether or not you find it to be stupid or not. And as humans, we're stupid creatures, so for all we know, we would be caught up in that mob mentality stuff that we saw in that film. But all the thematic stuff aside on that, I suppose, I enjoyed Halloween Kills, and this was the first Halloween film that I did not get to do a review on properly upon its release, but I really did enjoy this one. It I think was a funner experience for me than Halloween 2018 was. And mind you, I did not see Halloween Kills in the theater. I did see it on Peacock on the first night it was released on that. So I was, you could imagine, beyond excited. And watching that one, it was like, wow, this is the Myers that I have been waiting for. In a lot of ways, I felt validated as a Myers fan, like a lifelong Myers fan who was friends with mostly Jason and Freddy fans, who would always say, oh man, Michael's a pussy, Michael don't kill nobody. This was the movie where I felt, you know what? They have all been proven wrong. And of course, we've seen a really brutal Myers before. Halloween 6, Rob Zombie's Halloween films. But it was really here in Halloween Kills where we got sort of the perfection of this overly brutal Myers. And that was one of the things I was really looking forward to in this film. Aspects of the story were, again, pretty okay. The dialogue I felt was a little improved, minus the overuse of Evil Dies Tonight. I noticed one of the main critiques of the film is that a lot of its dialogue is too Shakespearean. You know what? Fuck it. It makes it more cinematic. And being that this is a film is cinematic, it works. Sure, that's not how people really talk. But if you look at the older films and look at the Loomis dialogue, do you think people really talk the way Dr. Loomis talks? With all his great speeches, the devil's eyes, I prayed that he would burn in hell, but I knew that hell would not have him. Do people talk like that? I don't think so. So, that sort of way of thinking, I think, kind of sort of helps to validate that aspect of complaints there. I think the comic relief also in Halloween Kills was handled just a little bit better because they kind of pulled it back just a little more and kept it isolated, mostly with Big John and Little John. Freaking love that they included Michael McDonald in this one. That's just a whole other thing too, that when I get around to properly reviewing this film, I'm gonna probably gush about just a little bit. So do expect that one, guys. But yeah, Halloween Kills. Unpopular opinion, might be my favorite one in this new trilogy. I guess that might be a bold statement. We'll see. If you guys decide to comment, let me know if you think I'm way off on that. Now, Halloween Ends. Oh, Halloween Ends was... This is probably the one time I was really nervous and skeptical about walking into a Halloween film. I did not get a chance to catch this one on the opening weekend, which really bummed me out. But I did end up waiting. It was the Friday before Halloween, so like, I think 3 days before Halloween, if I remember correctly. Me and Shannon went and saw that one. And, you know, I was nervous about it because I had already sort of seen just little snippets of comments that people had about it. I was trying to stay away from just about every review regarding Halloween Ends, and I saw there was a lot of hate for this film. And, you know, I, again, enjoyed it. I'm a Myers nut swinger, so naturally, you guys know that I'm going to be all about it. And I guess a lot of people really still aren't liking this film, and the hate for this one is stronger than the hate was for Halloween Kills, which is freaking crazy. It's like, you guys understand this is like the last time, quote unquote, last time we're going to see Myers. You should be a little more appreciative of it, I would imagine. I guess that's not the case for everybody, but you know, I enjoyed this one. I like the idea that they took the chance to do something different. And a lot of people didn't like it. But I find this to be funny because one of the big things they didn't like was the Corey Cunningham and Michael Myers sort of partnership. I just noticed that both of their names are alliterations too, which is pretty cool. But a lot of people didn't like that, Corey being Michael's sidekick. And while I agree they should not have waited until the third film to introduce Corey, it would have been a little helpful had they introduced him at least in Halloween Kills. That way it's like, okay, we can kind of love this character a little more and be upset when he makes his turn to, we'll say, evil. Lets the evil inside, lets it corrupt him. I agree that was kind of a stupid move to not pull him out until the last minute. But I like the Corey character. And I like what they had him do, where it's like, you see him at the beginning and you think, okay, this guy's going to do his best to avert the course of evil. He's going to fight the evil. That's kind of what we're set up to believe. But I think a lot of us, having seen these films before and these types of films, we kind of know where it's going. So when he does make his turn to allowing the evil inside and starts killing people with Michael, and then sort of turns on Michael and tries to take the killing business into his own hands, I guess a lot of people didn't like that. I thought it was cool. Again, you guys know my love for Halloween 3 and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You guys know I like my Halloween to get weird. I'm not ashamed to say crazy Halloween films are fucking amazing. I like when they are willing to take the chance to do something different. I mean, we don't want to see the same film 15 times, right? That aside, I enjoyed that Halloween Ends decided to really kind of do something different. It had the balls to do something different, and for the most part, it worked. There were aspects of the execution that I felt were a little clunky, could have been handled better. Again, the involvement of Corey's character, it would have been nicer if we had met him early on. I know I had already said that, but I can't overstate that enough. As much as I loved the character, it would have been more helpful if we'd had him at least for the previous two films. His relationship with Allison was pretty enjoyable. I liked that they brought that romance aspect into the film. I'm always a sucker for a good love story, and I thought it was a good love story. I thought it was a tragic one, and tragic love stories are always pretty great. And, you know, the use of the song Don't Fear the Reaper, it does allude to Romeo and Juliet, who were not, it was a relationship that wasn't really supposed to work, just like Corey and Allison. Maybe I'm overthinking the aspect of Don't Fear the Reaper, but, you know, I think that in a lot of ways their relationship is similar to that song. Uh, that doesn't really pertain too much, I don't think, but I don't know. Maybe it does. And also, it was really nice to have the film close out with that song. The showdown with Michael and Laurie. That was interesting. I would have preferred it had Laurie Strode died with Michael. Of course, she does not. She kind of gets her happy ending, and, you know, I guess it is cool to see her finally get a happy ending, because she doesn't get that in Halloween H2O. I mean, she's fucking traumatized. Sure, she wins, but she's fucked beyond all recognition. But here in the end of Halloween Ends, yeah, she's a little traumatized, but she seems hopeful. We don't really see that glimmer of hope for her in Halloween H2O. And besides, that one sort of leads into Resurrection. And yeah. Nah, man, we all know about that Halloween Resurrection shit. No, not a good way to end things for Laurie Strode. So I guess seeing her survive was nice, but I felt it would have been a little more poetic and Shakespearean if she was able to go down with Michael. And the way they took Michael out, too, I don't know, man. I'm still trying to process that, because that, for me, was, it was nice to see Michael get a definitive killing, like, to be killed off definitively. But the way they did it, man, I'm still just trying to process that. I'm trying to come to terms with it. It's like losing a lifelong friend for me at this point, to be perfectly honest. But, you know, overall, I did enjoy Halloween Ends. Is it a perfect Halloween film? Not really. Is it a good example of a Halloween film? Mileage may vary. Would I recommend it as a first watch of a Halloween film to anybody? No. I would not have somebody watch this one first. That I will say. But Halloween Ends, I thought, was a pretty fitting conclusion to this sort of timeline. Do I think that the Blumhouse trilogy works as a cohesive trilogy? Yes and no. The films, I think, in this trilogy, in a lot of ways, kind of work as sort of a two-piece each, with Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills being their own little two-piece bit, and then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends being sort of their own little two-piece, if that makes sense. I don't know. As it doesn't feel like they ride the same sort of constant storyline throughout, which is kind of weird considering, you know, as a trilogy, you want there to be that firm connective tissue. The world building of Haddonfield, I felt, was a pretty decent sort of linking between the three films, but as far as sort of the overall narrative structure, it felt like it was just a little bit wonky, but it is still believable that this is all happening in sort of the same little realm of existence. Do I find it to be the definitive Halloween timeline? You know, the H40 timeline, as much as I enjoy the three films by Blumhouse, of course in pairing with the original film, I don't think this is at all the greatest timeline. Personally, I think the greatest timeline in the franchise is probably the H20 timeline with the resurrection removed. I find there to be two different H20 timelines. Of course, the one that is Halloween, Halloween 2, and then Halloween H2O, and then those three films with Resurrection if you want to get fucking weird with it. But yeah, no, I think the Halloween 20-year timeline is probably the best of the timelines. Although for me, and for my money, the most enjoyable timeline. You guys know I'm a Thorn boy. I love my Thorn trilogy. Do I find this one to have been executed better than the Thorn trilogy, though? Yes. As much as I enjoy the Thorn trilogy, I think that aspects of the 40-year trilogy were done just a little bit better. I don't know. I'd have to make a whole video kind of ranking and going more into the different timelines. I mean, we all know the Halloween timelines, but I don't know. I feel like there should be sort of their own video for that. So I'll probably keep that in mind for a later date. Now, what should come next? Michael Myers is dead. Haddonfield might be able to see the light again. What should this franchise do next? I think now is as good a time as any for this franchise to take its leap finally into the anthology direction. We did see this sort of become attempted with Halloween 3 back in 1982. Of course, that didn't work because, the fandom was a little too close-minded, and I guess one could argue that we still are today. We need to get our shit together, guys. Come on. We're better than this. We should be better than this. But, yeah, the anthology direction, I think, would be a good place to go. And you could even make some of these sort of period pieces, for crying out loud. Like, you could have sort of a Pioneerland version of Haddonfield or Russellville. I mean, it'd be nice to see some films actually set in Russellville and better parts of Hardin County and Warren County and all that. The Charlie Bowles story, of course, we would like to see. I don't know about you guys, but I need to know what happened. Went out to the garage, got himself a hacksaw, came back in the house, kissed his wife and 2 children goodbye. And then he proceeded to, where are we? What happened? I need to know. So the anthology direction is seriously something we need. I mean, we could even go into Jackson P. Sayer, Reverend Sayer from Halloween 4. A movie about him set in the Halloween universe? That could be cool. I mean, they could even redo their hand with Halloween 3. Like, I don't recommend a remake of Halloween 3, but that could sort of re-garner interest further into that film and the idea of the anthology. So really, I think that's the best thing they could do. It's either that or remake the first film again. Do we want to see that? No. And as much as I love Myers, I think the franchise has run its course with them. And it really does pain me to say that. But I feel that the Myers character has kind of ran his course. Of course, we could always see attempts at other retcon sequels, I mean, we could even get like a weird fucking resurrection follow-up. I don't really care to see what happens after that, but I don't know. Follow-up, Michael waking up at the morgue. I mean, as a kid, I thought that would have been an interesting follow-up, but as an adult, it's like, I don't really care to see that right now. A proper H6 follow-up, that wouldn't really work. It seems like if we want to keep using Michael, we have only one option, people. To infinity and beyond with Myers. That's right. Take old Mikey to space. Do you guys want to see that? Because I don't. If we keep using Michael in this franchise, that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to send old Mikey to space. Go with the anthology. There's a lot of ground that could be covered with that. Sort of an unlimited well of ideas that could be explored. And, you could be working on multiple Halloween anthology films at a time, which would really allow for those to be done annually, like the idea was back when they tried the Halloween 3. That's just my thoughts on that. The anthology is the only way to go at this point, and I firmly believe that. Well, without any further ado, guys, let's get into the updated Halloween ranking. This is a ranking for me that usually more or less stays the same, but we do get sort of an alteration with the middle entries, and the bottom four are sort of semi-interchangeable, but it's usually the last place and first place are most often going to be the same. There will be usually little alteration to either of those. So without any further procrastination, let's take a look at the 13th, and I guess you could say worst or least favorite. We'll call it the worst Halloween film, Halloween Resurrection. I think I can safely say, guys, that I don't think I hate this film anymore, or hate it less than I used to. I kind of watched it. Oh, yeah, I did watch it. I kind of tuned out around the end, but I did give it a rewatch not too long ago. And, you know, the last couple times before I tried watching it, I skipped it. Like, it was like 15 minutes in, if that. And I'm like, nope, rage quit. I'm watching something else. I just can't do it with this movie. But this last time, I actually managed to sit through it. And, you know, as bad of a Halloween movie as it is, if you mentally remove the fact from your mind that it is a Halloween sequel and just look at it as sort of its own little weird one-off early 2000s slasher film, it's serviceable. I mean, as a Halloween film, though, it's almost insulting, at least with the way it really sort of besmirches the ending of the previous film. And you guys know I'm not particularly the biggest fan of Halloween H2O, but what this movie does really discredits that movie, and it is absolutely unforgivable for that. And a lot of what they do with Busta Rhymes' character, just no. But there are some redeeming factors. Some of the choices with the score for this film I thought were pretty cool. Michael looks pretty cool in some of the shots also, depending on how he's lit. If he's given too much light, he does not look right, but if you have him in the right amount of shadows and darkness, he looks pretty cool. And there's like I'd say two kills that I really like out of this whole film. No, we'll give it three. About three kills I really like in this one. One is the American Pie Kid's kill when Michael smashes through the mirror and just sticks him in the head with his knife. The Peeping Tom callback kill with the little camera with the what would you say? You wouldn't call that a blade, but it's got like the little spear at the end of it when it just sticks the dude in the throat with it on the camera stand for the tripod. That was pretty freaking brutal. And the hand kill when he crushes the dude's head. You got the blood coming out of his eyes. That was pretty sick. But yeah, Halloween Resurrection, guys, dead last, number 12. It's enjoyable as a film if you turn your brain off, but it is a god-awful Halloween film. Coming in at number 12. This one is probably, I don't know, probably the most aggravating placement for me, because I do like this film. Do not let the low placement fool you on that. It is Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. You guys know I have a lot of nostalgia for this film. My mom rented it for me and my brother when it came out on DVD. And maybe it wasn't the best film for a 10 and a 12-year-old to watch, but you know, we'd seen probably a few films worse than that up to that point. But I don't know, it's one that I really kind of go back and forth on. I like things about the prequel section of the film. I don't like it as part of the Halloween canon, but as like a generic serial killer film, yeah, it's pretty cool to include to sort of show that nature versus nurture psychology. But as a Halloween film, I don't know. I'm really divided on that. I don't like over explanation of Myers, but with a couple of my picks later on, you guys will be like, how can you say that in this and you like this one more? I don't know. I contradict myself sometimes, guys. We're just gonna have to live with that. But, you know, I like the film for its brutality. I don't particularly care for aspects of the second act of the film. Would you call it the end of the first act or the beginning of the second act? The unrated version's escape scene. That can fuck right off. A lot of the characters in this one I think are played a little better than they were in the original film. And some of the dialogue, though, was, you know, not proper Halloween dialogue by any stretch. Rob Zombie's Halloween is one that every time I watch it, I either love it or like it less. Like, it always alternates between every other viewing. So yeah, Rob Zombie's Halloween, number 12. Well, coming in at number 11, this is probably going to be my first truly controversial pick on this list. It's going to be Halloween H2O, H20, 20 years later, whatever you want to call it. This one, guys, you know how I feel about it. I have problems with it. I do enjoy the third act of the film mostly. There are some really good scenes of tension throughout the film. I like the sort of PTSD hallucinations that Laurie has throughout the film, where she sees people walking, especially her boyfriend, and she thinks it's Michael, but it's not. The third act, though, man, that third act is freaking balls to the wall insane. The bathroom scene at the rest area, that was also very well handled. I love the tension in that one. But, you know, there's continuity issues in this film that, yeah, you guys know I am not a big fan of. Namely, you know, being able to see Michael's freaking eyes that had been shot out in Halloween 2. I can overlook the fact that his hands aren't scarred up and burnt all to hell, but seeing his eyes visibly throughout the majority of the film when we do see him, no. I absolutely hate that decision. At least in the Thorn trilogy, his eyes are at least attempted to be concealed. We do see his eyes a couple times throughout, but here it's like they didn't even care to try and show his eyes being screwed up. I try to not dwell on that. Like, if I look past that, I can enjoy the film. And for the most part, I do. I really don't hate many of the Halloween films. Resurrection, kinda. But I don't know. Halloween H2O, it has probably the best ending of the franchise. And I don't know, it kind of irritates me that I put it so low. But there's things about the other films that I think make them work a little bit better. Alright, guys, coming in at number 10, we have Halloween 5. Nick, I'm sorry if this one's too low, but just know, buddy, it's climbing just a little bit for me. This one, I think, has a pretty good atmosphere. It does have quite a few problems, though. Of course, the mask is not the best example of a Myers mask here. The portrayal of Myers by Don Shanks is, I don't want to say pedestrian, but it's not the best. I think he did his best with what he was given, but I think it could have been handled just a little bit better if we'd had a director that gave a little bit more of a damn. I know those points kind of sound like I should have this film lower, and believe me, it has been much lower than this. But, you know, Halloween 5, I think, is an interesting case of sort of a black sheep within the series. I mean, Halloween 3 is the definitive black sheep of the franchise, but this one's also a real black sheep of its own. Sure, it has an ending that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't end on a really good point where it's like, okay, we kind of have an idea what to expect with the next film. I mean, a lot of the ideas they had in this one, guys, were not sustainable to really help out the writers of the next film. You know, this one, it drags a little bit, but once it gets going and gets to that third act, like, I am completely invested in the film. It could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse. But I seem to appreciate this one just a little bit more every time I watch it. So yeah, Halloween 5, number 10. I don't have too much awful to say about it. And by the way, Tina wasn't that bad. Number 9 is the original Halloween 2. This is the one that started this whole idea that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are related, and it sort of, again, it really dominated the course of the franchise for the better part of 3 to 4 decades. It did a great job, though, with its continuity, bringing back actors and characters from the first film, especially considering that it takes place just minutes after the first film ends. This one ups the body count, sort of ups the excitement and creativity of the kills, especially since it was trying to compete with the sort of bigger slasher films that were coming out at the time, namely Friday the 13th. I think it did pretty good with that. This film does have quite a problem with its pacing, though. It does drag quite a bit. Dick Warlock, though, he was good as Myers, and I'm not even about to go into my whole defense on him. You guys know, if you want to hear my defense on him, you can watch. There's a couple videos you can watch on that. I'll try to remember to put tags for him up in here. Yeah, the brother sister thing, that was a really pulled out of the ass at the 11th hour kind of deal. But you know, we got to live with it because most of the films in the franchise are dominated by that. So we sort of gotta, I don't want to say appreciate it, but we gotta learn to accept it. Donald Pleasant's great as always in this one. Moving on to the number 8 spot, we have Halloween 4. And before you guys take me to the stakes to burn me alive, hear me out. I do not have the same nostalgia that a lot of you guys might have for this film. It wasn't until I was about 12 or 13, I believe, that I saw this one. And by the time I did see Halloween 4, I had seen most of the films that had already been out at that point. And, you know, I found it great. And, you know, I will also say this is one that does sort of seem to drop just a little bit with every Halloween film that we have gotten over the last 4 or 5 years. Just because I found them a little more enjoyable, as obviously you can tell because they have not been listed yet. But Halloween 4 really is, despite the low placement I am giving it here, it really is one of the better sequels that we have available. Again, the atmosphere, fucking 10 out of 10 on that. George Wilbur's physical portrayal of Myers. You guys know I love George P. So, yeah, I think the portrayal by George P. Wilbur is really outstanding. On the sort of cosmetic front, it was a little bit weird with the mask. Not a fan of the Halloween 4 mask at all. The shoulder pads, you know, big old. No, not a fan of that look either. I don't even know what that noise was, but whatever. But yeah, Halloween 4, it was enjoyable enough, guys. I get a kick out of it. I do find it to be a great entry to the series. And, I mean, for crying out loud, the Thorn trilogy is my personal favorite timeline to visit in the Halloween films. Despite this one and Halloween 5 being on the back half. I do enjoy them both pretty well. But, you know, again, it's really just the lack of nostalgia and just being a little more interested in the other films. I'm sorry about it, guys. All right, guys, we are in the absolute middle of the ranking. Looking at number 7, we have, you guys, bring on the hate mail. I'm ready for it. Halloween Ends. The newest inclusion of the Halloween franchise. Again, I enjoyed this film, guys. I really did. Is it the perfect way to end the franchise? Probably not. Are there aspects of the film that were a little overdone? Sure. Could it have been combined with Halloween Kills and parts of Kills been combined with 2018? Perhaps. But, as a film, I really did enjoy Halloween Ends. It did some things that, maybe about a year down the road, I might look back on and be like, oh yeah, maybe that didn't hold over so well. But right now, I'm still pretty high on Halloween Ends, and in a lot of ways, I'm still trying to process it. So I don't want to sort of show my whole hand with Halloween Ends right now. I think it's really, for me right now, about a middle of the road Halloween film. Again, I didn't say that I think it's the greatest thing since frickin' apple pie, for crying out loud. So yeah, Halloween Ends, absolute middle of this ranking. It's a good Halloween film. And yeah, it does some things that are a massive departure, a sharp left, if you will. It could have been worse, but it could have done a couple things better. Okay, moving right along, guys, to number 6, we have Halloween 2018. This one, of course, is the start to the Blumhouse trilogy. It made a great first move by retconning the brother-sister aspect that was introduced in Halloween 2 back in 81, which was a great move on this film's part. It brought us back a Michael Myers that we could all enjoy. It kind of put him back in a sort of mystique-based mystery sense that we haven't really seen in a while. So to see that was a good return to shape, if you will. And of course, the follow-up films would kind of veer from that a little bit, but that's sort of to be expected. Because the more you bring a character in, the more you kind of got to elaborate on them. You can't just bring a blank slate in every time. But with Halloween 2018, they did pretty good at sort of reverting Michael back to that. This film still does have some of its problems, but, it's one that I still think is a very good Halloween film. It's may not have the highest placement in the ranking right now, but I like it more than, of course, all the films that I've previously mentioned. Number 5, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You guys know I love this film. I am a very outspoken supporter of this film. I will die on the mountain. That is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 Defense Squad. It's a misunderstood film. It is one of the other black sheeps. It's one that I think gets an unfair amount of hatred. It does something different, and people don't like different with Halloween, apparently. Even though these are the same people who ask for something different. But when they're given different, they want to scream about it. Again, guys, we need to get our act together as Halloween fans here. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, though, it really does good at exploring PTSD trauma, which I think is obviously a central theme to this film. I think that it was handled in a way that was not too overdone. The white horse thing, it doesn't bother me. I know it bothers a lot of you guys out there. I'm sorry you can't appreciate that. I mean, I don't love the white horse myself, but I'm not bothered by it. I think it's a sort of a silly visual aesthetic for the franchise, but it doesn't hurt the film in any way. But, I think that it was a pretty sort of realistic sort of direction for these characters, especially in the continuity that is the Rob Zombie verse of the franchise. Dr. Loomis, though, was kind of a dick, but it's nice to see that we can definitively separate McDowell's Loomis from Donald Pleasant's Loomis. So to see him sort of go off in this bizarre direction was sort of a treat, I guess. I don't know if treat's the right word. More of a trick, really. Anyway, moving right along to number 4, guys. Halloween Kills. You guys know I enjoy Brutal Myers. As you can tell, Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie was a previous mentioned film. So to see Michael Myers in this form here, I mean, he was in tip-top shape. He was in his peak of killing here. And yeah, sure, aspects of the story were a little goofy handled, but you know, it was an enjoyable film for me. I wanted to see a Brutal Myers. I wanted to see him be sort of this unstoppable force, and that's what we got. And being that that was really what I wanted in the film, I'm satisfied with it. The whole scene with Mr. Tivoli, the little guy that is chased around by Haddonfield at the hospital, yeah, that was I didn't hate that scene like most people do. Yeah, I find it to be a little funny that they mistook him for Myers, but what they were trying to say there, I think, was, had they handled it just a little bit differently, probably could have been a little bit more effective in the way they were looking to make it effective. I don't know if I had been on the set there to sort of help them with it. I mean, giving myself a little too much credit there, but you know, if I had been a consultant on the set with that, I probably would have tried to help them pull back just a little bit on that and not overdo that. Anyway, moving on from that, you know, Halloween Kills, it was not a disappointment for me. And you guys know I like my films to, especially in a trilogy, I love that dark, cynical ending. I mean, as movies, period, you guys know I like that really fucked up ending. And Halloween Kills kind of gives us that, so I couldn't be prouder of it. Number 3. This is a film that almost landed in a lower spot, but I sort of had some time to reevaluate the ranking before I came on to do this video. Halloween 6, guys. My first Halloween film, it deserves a high place for me. I couldn't put it in a lower spot, even though I tried to. I still had to say, no, you can't do that. You got to put it up at a higher spot. So Halloween 6 is the first time we see a truly Brutal Myers. Which, again, if you guys paid attention to the last 2 placements, a Brutal Myers is exactly what I'm looking for. Do I like a mysterious and subtle Myers? Yes. But I love a fucking Brutal Myers. And that's exactly what we get in this film. And yeah, there's a couple things that are way off with this film. Of course, the differences in the producer's cut and theatrical cut, both of them seem to be pretty incomplete. I can't ignore that fact. This is not helped by the fact that Donald Pleasance died not too long before the film was released. Obviously was not in the best of health conditions when the film was being made. And of course, all the infighting amongst the production staff was just not doing this film any favors. And like 30% of its budget went to fucking Hellraiser 4. So, you know, what can you do? But I love Halloween 6 for what it is. I don't care that it is one of the most bizarre, imperfect Halloween films. I fucking love it. This is another Halloween hill I'm gonna die on. And I will be championing it till the end of the earth. Coming in at number 2, we have Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. This film I really do love also. You know, I didn't get a chance to see this film at a young age. And, you know, I think before the new set of films, I think this was the last one I did watch. And in a way, I'm glad I waited till my late teens to watch it. You know, I had been told growing up that, no, this is the worst film, stay away from it, don't watch it. It doesn't have Michael, you're going to hate it. So, you know, I kind of heeded the warnings for quite the longest time. There's even a couple times I almost picked it up at the video store, but, you know, didn't see Myers on the back, so it was like, I don't know. Which it doesn't have a whole lot to do with my idea of Halloween. And sure, it says Halloween 3, but I'm not sure it is a Halloween film. So, you know, I did not watch it. But when I did watch it, I was like,
wait a second. Why is this film so fucking good? It has no business being this good.
Yeah, I was young enough and had an open enough mind as a late teen to appreciate this film. And I'm glad I did. And it has since obviously become one of my favorites in the franchise. To give you an idea just how much I adore this film and love to watch it, if I'm in the mood for a Halloween film and I can't make up my mind on which one to watch, I just pick this one. It's like, what do I want to do? Do I want to watch Michael chase a babysitter? Watch Michael chase a babysitter? Watch Michael chase a babysitter? Watch Michael chase his sister? Or do I want to watch a guy who wants to kill every freaking kid on the planet using these Halloween masks that have bits of Stonehenge and the damn chip in the back? Simplest way to define that plot. Yeah, I'm going to watch the one that's different. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, man, number 2. And of course, number 1, guys, is 1978 Halloween. This is always going to be the greatest one in the franchise. This is almost undisputed fact. It'd probably take 150 years before they could even come close to making one better than this. This is mostly a pretty timeless film. There are some things in it that are inherently 70s, inherently 20th century, but it is still almost a wholly timeless film. This is the one that really put the whole slasher subgenre into motion. And sure, we had some other precursors, fucking Psycho, Black Christmas, but it was really Halloween. That was the film that gave Sean Cunningham the idea to kick off Friday the 13th, which just created the freaking vicious snowball that was the slasher. So yeah, Halloween 78, man, it's, without it, we wouldn't be here talking at all about this franchise. We probably wouldn't be talking about the slasher film. Horror probably would have, probably not completely fizzled out, but it wouldn't have been the dominating force that it was in the 80s. For its inspiration alone, Halloween is a super important film, guys. There is no denying that. But it's also the best in the franchise. It has a simple story that is about a guy who randomly attacks a babysitter. That's what this story is. And it just so happens to have been on Halloween night when that happened. It doesn't get any more better than that. It's not the super cerebral plot line, but, you know, it's basic. But the way John Carpenter and Deborah Hill created this story, that was like cinema perfection, guys. So yeah, Halloween 1978, number 1. Without a doubt. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what y'all thought about the Blumhouse, David Gordon Green trilogy of Halloween films down below. Let me know how you would re-rank the franchise or rank the franchise period. And where do you think the Halloween franchise should go next? I want to know your guys' thoughts on that. Comment below. Give this video a like. Share it if you can. And got more stuff coming for you guys. See you soon.